She was just a quiet librarian. For 30 years, she worked at the same small-town library, organizing books, helping students, and no one ever questioned who she really was until those horrific murders started in town. The police were helpless. Even the FBI had no leads. But that old librarian, quietly reading newspapers, began to notice something. And what happened next would shock the entire town. Welcome to Hidden Hero Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Millbrook Public Library sat in the heart of Connecticut, housed in an old Victorian building. With its high ceilings, wooden shelves, and large bay windows, this place was the most peaceful corner of town. Every morning at 8 a.m., the doors opened, closing at 6 p.m. But Eleanor Hayes always arrived early and left late. Eleanor was 65, medium height, with gray hair always pulled back in a bun, wearing glasses perched on the tip of her nose, the classic librarian look. She'd worn the same style cardigan for 40 years, dark navy blue, buttons always fastened. She walked quietly, spoke quietly too, as if she'd completely adapted to the library's atmosphere. The townspeople knew her as Ms. Eleanor. Kind, knowledgeable, someone who had an answer to every question, but never shared anything about her personal life. Was she married? Did she have children? Where had she come from? No one knew. She never talked about it. The library's other employee was 28-year-old Sarah Chen, young, energetic, a tech-savvy librarian. Sarah respected Eleanor greatly, but sometimes wondered about her past. Eleanor had some peculiar habits. For instance, she read the local newspapers every day, but not just the news pages. She carefully examined police reports, small news items, even obituaries. Her interest in crime novels was above normal. She followed Psychology Today, criminal justice magazines. And sometimes, when talking with patrons, she'd look at people as if analyzing them. "Eleanor, why do you read so many crime books?" Sarah had asked one day. Eleanor had adjusted her glasses. "Human nature is a fascinating subject, Sarah. Understanding what people are capable of helps you protect them better." It was an odd answer, but Eleanor always spoke like that, deep, meaningful, but vague responses. Eleanor's day always began the same way. She'd arrive at the library at 7:30 a.m. and first make coffee. But her coffee was unusual too, very dark, very strong. She'd sometimes joke it was FBI coffee, but no one understood what she meant. Sipping her coffee, she'd open the computer and first check local news sites, then her old radio that could pick up police frequencies. She claimed it was for emergencies at the library, but in reality, she was aware of everything happening in town. Eleanor's desk was also noteworthy. Organized, clean, but always had notebooks in one corner. No one knew what she wrote in these notebooks. Sarah had once tried to peek, but Eleanor had quickly closed it. "Just personal notes, dear," she'd said. But those notes looked nothing like personal notes. In the afternoons, when the library was quiet, Eleanor usually worked in the archive section. She was digitizing old newspapers, but actually studying old crime cases. Unsolved murders from the 1990s, missing person cases, strange deaths. She'd read them all carefully, taking notes. One day, Sarah couldn't hold back and asked, "Eleanor, why are you so interested in old crime stories?" Eleanor had stopped and looked out the window. "Because, Sarah, the past always affects the future. Unsolved cases usually repeat themselves, and this town harbors more secrets than we think." These words had unsettled Sarah, but the day when she'd understand Eleanor was right wasn't far away. It was the second week of October. Eleanor was reading the morning paper as usual when a small news item on page 3 caught her attention. Mysterious death in Millbrook. 45-year-old local businessman Robert Fields found dead in woods near his home. Police investigating cause of death. Eleanor removed her glasses and read the news again. Then she pulled out her notebook and wrote down a few details. Robert Fields, 45, businessman, found in woods. Cause of death unclear. October 8th, 2024, Sarah approached. Terrible, isn't it? Did you know him? Eleanor nodded. I did. He was a kind man. Came here twice a week, read business magazines, very organized, very careful person. What are the police saying? No statement yet, but Eleanor stopped, was about to say something, but decided against it. 2 weeks later, the second news came. Second mysterious death in Millbrook. 52-year-old retired teacher Margaret Wilson found dead in her backyard. This time, Eleanor stood up. Sarah noticed the expression on her face, worry, but also a familiar seriousness. Eleanor, are you okay? Sarah, pull all newspaper articles about these 2 deaths for me. Everything from the last 2 months. Why? Eleanor looked at her. For the first time, there was something different in her eyes. Determination, experience, and perhaps fear. Because I think this isn't a coincidence. From that night on, Eleanor changed. She was still the same quiet librarian, but now more careful, more observant. Every day she scanned newspapers, listened to police reports, and constantly updated her notebook. Sarah watched her curiously. Eleanor now had a large map on her desk, showing Millbrook and surrounding areas. It had red pins on it, 2 of them, where Robert Fields was found, and Margaret Wilson's house. Eleanor, what are you doing? Pattern analysis, Sarah. Every serial killer has a pattern. Location, time, victim profile, method. If you map these out, you can predict the next one. Sarah looked at her in amazement. You sound very experienced in these matters. Eleanor stopped. There was no point hiding it anymore, at least partially. Sarah, before I worked at this library, I had a different job. I used to analyze people's behavior, especially criminals. What kind of job? Federal work, but that was long ago. Eleanor wasn't giving full details, but Sarah understood this woman had serious things in her past. That evening, Eleanor stayed alone at the library. She turned off all the lights, leaving only the desk lamp on. In front of her were 2 files, Robert Fields and Margaret Wilson files she'd created herself. Her old habits were returning. She began profiling. Robert Fields, 45 years old, single, businessman, social but reserved, had regular habits, physically strong. Hard to control, Margaret Wilson, 52 years old, widow, retired teacher, lives alone, minimal relationship with neighbors. Returns home early at night, vulnerable target. Eleanor put her pen on the desk. There were very few common points between the 2 victims, but there was something. Both came to the library. Both knew Eleanor. This thought scared her. What if the killer was choosing victims because they knew her? What if Eleanor was unknowingly connecting with the killer? The phone rang. It was Sarah. Eleanor, are you watching the news? They found a 3rd person. Eleanor's heart stopped. Thomas Bradley, 38 years old, local bank manager. This time the location where the body was found was different. In the city park, by the main road. As if the killer wanted to attract more attention. The next morning when Eleanor arrived at the library, there were 2 police cars in the parking lot. When she went inside, Detective Mike Thompson and Sheriff Robert Kane were waiting for her. Ms. Hayes, said Detective Thompson, we need to talk with you. Eleanor remained calm, but her heart was racing. Of course. How can I help? We learned that all 3 victims regularly came to this library. Did you know all of them? Eleanor led them to the small conference room. Sarah came too, listening curiously. Yes, I knew them all. Robert read business magazines, Margaret loved novels, and Thomas looked at finance books. Sheriff Kane was taking notes. Did you notice any other common points between them? Eleanor paused. She'd been expecting this question, but the answer was dangerous. They all had regular habits. They came on certain days, at certain times. This would make it easy for someone to observe them. Detective Thompson looked at her. You think very analytically. Do you have experience in this area? It was the critical moment. Eleanor had to make a choice. Tell the truth or continue hiding. Detective, I'm just a librarian, but I have some observations about these murders. I can share them if you'd like. Please. Eleanor pulled out a paper. It had a table on it. The victims' age range is 38 to 52. They all lived alone despite being social. They all had predictable routines, and they were all people known by others for the respect they showed me. Meaning, the killer is choosing both easy targets and people respected in the community. This indicates someone with a need to prove himself, but intelligent enough. The police officers looked at Eleanor. This analysis was professional level. Detective Thompson leaned forward. "Ms. Hayes, where did you learn this analysis?" Eleanor took a deep breath. The time for hiding had passed. "Detective, I worked for the FBI for 20 years. In the Behavioral Analysis Unit, I was a criminal profiler." The room froze. Sheriff Kane dropped his pen. Sarah's mouth fell open. "Eleanor, you were an FBI agent," Sarah whispered. Eleanor nodded. "From 1982 to 2002, I worked at Quantico in the BAU. I profiled serial killers." Detective Thompson stood up. "In that case, we request your full cooperation. Would you officially join this case?" "No," Eleanor said quietly. "I'm retired. That life is behind me." "But," Eleanor interrupted, "I can help you, unofficially." Sheriff Kane leaned forward. "What kind of help?" Eleanor opened her notebook. Inside were detailed maps, timelines, behavioral analyses. "Our killer is 25 to 35 years old, probably white, local. He knows this town very well. He's observed the victim's routines, carefully prepared his plan. But he started to get hasty. He left the third body in a more visible location. What does this mean? Either he wants to get caught or he's planning the big finale. In either case, we don't have time." Detective Thompson pulled out his phone. "I should call the FBI." "No," Eleanor said firmly. "Not yet. Federal intervention might scare off the killer. We can solve this locally." "How?" Eleanor pointed to the map. "The killer's next target will most likely be here." She pointed to a spot with her finger. "North side of the park, between 9 to 11 p.m. Tonight? Most likely, he's not breaking the pattern. And today is Thursday. The previous murders were also midweek." Sarah was trembling. "Eleanor, this is very dangerous. What if you're wrong?" Eleanor looked at her, the determination of old days in her eyes. "Sarah, I did this job for 20 years. I solved 47 serial killer cases. I'm not wrong." That evening, Eleanor closed the library early. She planned with Detective Thompson and Sheriff Kane. In the small command center they set up at the library, Eleanor was returning to her old identity. "The killer will probably appear on Park Avenue. Between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. He'll come alone, but might be armed." "How do you know he'll be alone?" Thompson asked. "Because this type of killer works alone. It's a matter of pride. They're trying to prove themselves." Eleanor put on the radio headset. After 20 years, she was back on an active case. At 9:30 p.m., the report came. "Suspicious target spotted. Alone, dark clothing, walking slowly." Eleanor's pulse quickened. "How's his approach behavior?" "He's scanning the area like he's looking for someone. Follow him from a distance. Wait until he makes a move." At 10:15 p.m., the second report. Target approached a woman, middle-aged, walking her dog. Eleanor jumped up. "Now, intervene now." Screams, running sounds could be heard on the radio. Then silence. Thompson's voice came, "Suspect apprehended. No one injured." Eleanor collapsed into her chair. It was solved. After 20 years, she'd stopped another killer. The next morning, Eleanor was trying to return to her normal routine at the library. But the town was different now. Everyone knew who she was. Detective Thompson came with a file in his hand. "You were right. David Morrison, 32 years old, local mechanic. He knew all the victims from the library. He felt jealous watching you talk with them." Eleanor wasn't surprised. Classic profile, social inadequacy, hostility toward authority figures. I was his target, but since he didn't dare touch me, he harmed people around me. He confessed. He'll probably get 20 years. Eleanor nodded. Good. But the sad thing is, this could have been prevented. If I hadn't hidden my identity, maybe I would have noticed these signals earlier. Thompson looked at her. Why did you hide it? Your FBI career? Eleanor looked out the window. Because that life was too heavy, Detective. For 20 years I saw the darkest sides of human nature. This library was my peace, my refuge. But I realized you can never escape the past. That day, Sarah didn't dare approach Eleanor. Learning she was an FBI agent had shocked her greatly. In the afternoon, she couldn't stand it anymore and asked, "Eleanor, then who are you really?" Eleanor smiled. "I'm the person you know, Sarah. The same Eleanor. I just have different experiences in my past. But FBI, serial killers, these are huge things. Yes, they were big things, but they're also finished things. I'm just a librarian now. This is my choice." Sarah paused. "Then why didn't you tell me?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "Because, Sarah, I came to this town to find peace. If I had told people who I was, they would have constantly expected me to solve crimes. I just wanted to be surrounded by books, knowledge, and peace. But you saved people. Maybe you could save more. Maybe. But there's a price for that, Sarah. Every case you solve leaves a mark in your mind. Every serial killer changes you a little more. I've changed enough." Sarah hugged her. "You're the same Eleanor, just someone I admire even more now." As the news spread, the people of Millbrook's view of Eleanor completely changed. Some saw her as a hero, while others couldn't understand why she had hidden her identity. Mayor Johnson came, wanting to give her the key to the city. Eleanor refused. "I just did my job, Mayor. Protecting this town is all of our responsibility." But it wasn't just people's looks that changed. Eleanor felt change in herself, too. She was beginning to accept a part of herself she'd hidden for 20 years. Detective Thompson brought an offer, consultant position at the FBI regional office, part-time whenever you want. Eleanor thought, only difficult cases, and my identity must remain secret. Deal. A month later, everything had returned to normal. Eleanor still worked at the same library, maintaining the same routines, but now her notebook wasn't empty. There were consultant cases from the FBI. Sarah had asked her, "Do you regret it? Losing your privacy?" Eleanor had answered while shelving books. "You know, Sarah, sometimes a person has to hide who they are, but they should never forget who they are. I'm Eleanor Hayes, both a librarian and a former FBI profiler. Together, they make up who I am. And from now on, I'll still be the same Eleanor. I'll just use my old identity when necessary." Eleanor looked out her window, watching the town. Peaceful, calm, safe. And she was still the protector of this peace. Only now everyone knew. Eleanor still works at the same Millbrook Library. She still wears the same navy cardigan, sits at the same desk. But now everyone knows that sometimes the greatest experts hide in the most ordinary-looking places. And maybe today you walked past an expert without noticing. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever encountered such a hidden expert? Someone you thought was ordinary, but then learned their true identity. Don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Heroes. We share powerful stories like this every week. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, take another look at the ordinary-looking people around you. Maybe they have expertise you never knew about.